Well, welcome back to the KS Moto Cafe. Hope you guys had a great week. For this week's episode, I want to talk about something that I should have done since the beginning of my riding career and when I got my Iron 883, and that is adjusting the preload of my rear shock. And I haven't done that because I assumed that my rider's weight was average to any Harley riders out there. I thought, being 190 pounds was the norm and that the factory setting of the preload would be okay, because when I went on a test ride with this bike, it felt okay. It met the description of what everyone else talks about a Sportster, which they always say the shocks suck. And guess what? The shocks did suck, but it wasn't a deal breaker for me. So after 1 year of riding, when I was taking my seat off to put on the Roadster seat back on, because I like the look of the Roadster seat, even though it was very uncomfortable. The stock seats come with this specialized wrench that you can use to adjust the preload of your rear shock. And I never got to use that. So I was like, you know what? Might as well try using it. And when I got into the manual, trying to figure out what my preload setting was, you can tell by just looking at the rear shock, there's these dot indicators that shows you what your preload setting should look like. Montage. Hey guys, so I thought maybe I'd take this time to kind of show you how you change the setting of the preload here, just in case if you are more of a visual learner like I am. So what happens is, this is the stock seat that I have from the Sportster Iron 883. As you can see right now, I have the Roadster seat. All stock seats, when you flip it over, you should be able to see this right here. This is a special tool that you use to adjust your preload. So first what you do is, there's a little plastic lever here. You lift it up and then you just push this out. And then there you go, pops out. So at this point what you do is you check your manual and see how many dots, and I'm talking about the dots you see right here. Right now you can see 5 dots, and how many dots you want to put in here really depends on the load of your motorcycle. So for me, if I'm on by myself, I'm about 190 pounds plus about 15 to 20 pounds of gear and equipment. So that puts me around 5 to 6 dots. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to show you guys how to drop one more dot on my preload spring, and then you guys can do it yourself. Obviously, if I have another passenger, then I'll most likely have way more dots than I require for this. And it is important for you guys to adjust your preload for your ride if you're changing the weight of your ride drastically. So at this point, it depends on whether you're moving up or down. And because I am increasing the number of dots, which means I have to bring it down, what I do is I'll start tightening up the bottom ring here. So what you do is, any of these holes, you just kind of line it up so that this little latch goes inside, like so. And then you just keep moving it down. So right now what I'm doing is I'm turning it clockwise as it brings the spring load down. I don't know if you can see it. So the top is now really loose for it to go up or down. And at this point what I want is to bring it all the way down until I can see the 6th dot. So as you can see, I still have to bring this bottom piece a little bit lower. So let me just finish bringing that down until I see the 6th dot. And I think that's about it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That should be good. So at this point what I want to do is make this tighter. So the bottom is good where I want it to be, but this top needs to be tightened as well. So what I will do is I'll put it on top and then I'll turn it clockwise until it's nice and tight. There. So now it won't move. So there's 6 dots here, and I'll do the same steps on the other side and make sure that you have the exact same amount of dots for that. Now if you're on your bike and you check that you have too many dots, then what you do is you reverse the process where you will loosen it up by going counterclockwise and loosening the top ring, and you bring it all the way to the point where you want it. So right now, let's say I want to do it 3 dots, and I'll bring it to 3 dots here, and then the bottom again counterclockwise. You're slowly bringing it up. Now the bottom side will have a bit more resistance because it is the one that's holding the spring down or up, but right now I like having 6 dots. So, and then once you're done, make sure just double check the tightness of the preload, and then you just slide it back under your seat like so. Make sure that plastic latch is on, and then you put your stock seat back on if you want, unless you already have another seat on top of your bike. And that's it, guys. It's pretty easy.
Meanwhile, at the Krusty Krab.
So when I got my bike, it only had 2 dots, and that's how I've been riding for the whole year. And based on the manual table that I'll put up on the screen, it says that I should at least have 5 dots. And yeah, that wasn't the case. So I quickly adjusted the setting of the preload and went for a quick ride, and wow, was it a world of a difference. And I'm not exaggerating here. Like every little divots and bumps on the road, I used to be able to feel all of that on my previous factory setting. Now I don't feel it. And this Roadster seat I really like the look of, but it wasn't really comfortable because the seat was a little harder than what I'm used to. Now it actually feels pretty good because the shocks are doing its job. So what was happening for me was, because my preload setting was so shallow, I was actually bottoming out every time I hit a bump. And yeah, that wasn't comfortable, but I was an idiot. So I thought maybe that was the norm and I lived through it with that pain. Now that I have the preload setting at the right level, it is a really good ride. I enjoy riding this, and it's probably not as good as if you upgraded to an aftermarket shock. That gives you a little bit more travel, but I'm telling you right now, after riding some of the Softail models, this is quite comfortable. So if you're about 170 pounds or heavier and you ride a Sportster and you never change the preload of your bike, I would go and take a peek of your ride in the rear and see how many dots you have. And if the dots are showing about 2 or 3, I would highly advise for you to check the manual to see what setting you should be at for your gross weight. And that gross weight includes the regular body weight plus all the gear that you have on, including your boots, your bag, your luggage. So for me, I'm a 190 pound person, but when I have all my gears on and my backpack, I'm about like 210. So for that, it was about 5 or 6 dots. I didn't want to overdo it, so I just went with 5 dots, and man, it made a world of a difference. So rather than spending like 400, 500 bucks on new shocks, try this out first if you haven't done so, because I might change your mind. And for those who are lightweight, like 140 pounds or so, thinking that maybe you should crank it up to 5 dots and ride like as if you were a 210 pounder, I would think twice, because it doesn't necessarily mean that it will increase the comfort of your ride. Because if your preload setting is overweight, and which means that you are lighter than the recommended weight for that setting for the number of dots on your rear spring, then what it's going to feel like is a very rough ride where you feel like your bike is being bottomed all the time because it's not giving enough weight for the shocks to actually engage when you don't have enough weight on it. But I can tell you, as a heavier person, if your spring is underweighted, then yeah, you're gonna bottom out every time you hit something on the road because your rear shock is not doing its job. Now, the travel of the stock rear shocks from the Sportster is only about 1 inch, which isn't a lot. But man, having the proper preload setting definitely gives you that 1 inch a little bit more comfortably than, you know, when you had it wrong. If you haven't subscribed yet, please click that subscribe button and press that like so it helps out with my YouTube channel's algorithm. Other than that, thanks for watching. We'll see you next week. Ride safe, ride prepared, ride on. Peace.